Well, lying on your CV could land you in jail. 5 years, actually. President Cyril Ramaphosa has signed the new National Qualifications Framework Amendment Act into law. So according to the Act, prospective students or job seekers could face up to 5 years in jail for misrepresenting their qualifications, even on social media. We've got career as well as educational specialist Linda Mayer, who joins us now in studio for this conversation. Linda, even up to 5 years for lying on social media. Tell us about this new amendment.
So the legislation now makes it very clear that if you purport to have a qualification that you have not obtained legitimately, or you go onto social media, for example, LinkedIn, or even, one Saturday night making a joke that you are a lawyer, you can now be prosecuted. And additionally to that, the South African Qualifications Authority will also hold a register of individuals that have misrepresented their qualifications, which will be a name and shame. So people will publicly know if people have misrepresented their qualifications.
Let's talk a little bit about what constitutes as downright lying versus obviously making your, making your CV much more sustainable or have substance for that matter. For example, some people like to say, I'm very organized when they turn out to be the most disorganized human beings on earth. Others say that they're on time when they're always late. So what constitutes as outright lying and versus individuals that are just trying to prop up really their CVs?
So there's a difference between creative storytelling, which is just around how you articulate what it is that you've achieved, and downright lying. If you haven't done something before, that is a lie. So before the Act obviously came into place, or the amendment was passed on the National Qualifications Act, it is obviously fraud if you lie on your CV. So now, when you lie about obtaining a qualification, you must remember before the NQF Act came into play, if you had a qualification that you studied legitimately, because if you studied 20 years ago, your qualification wouldn't appear on the National Qualifications Framework, but you obtained it legitimately. So you're not lying about obtaining the qualification. There's a process underway with the South African Qualifications Authority to normalize those old qualifications. But if you say you enrolled for a qualification, which is most often what we find, that people enroll for a qualification and then purport that they've achieved that qualification, when in fact they're lying. The Act also requires that if you have studied with a foreign institution, that you must ensure that you have that qualification benchmark with the South African Qualifications Authority, so that you can purport that it is on the prerequisite National Qualifications Framework level when you say you have achieved such a qualification. And
then on the other side of it, Linda, let's say that one is a manager or the employer, for example, and you've got individuals that are working in your company who actually have lied about their qualifications. What happens now? Do they have to go back, do the due diligence, and then if they find out that this individual, or particular individual, actually lied about their qualification, what happens then? Do they automatically get arrested? Can they press charges against such an individual, especially in corporate structures where people have been lying maybe for years?
So in terms of the Act, it is obviously not retrospectively implemented. So if an employer finds that an employee has lied, they can absolutely lay fraud charges with the South African Police Services. The Act now, however, makes it compulsory for all employers, if there is a new appointee, to ensure that the qualifications are valid and registered on the National Qualifications Framework. Not only employers in the public and private sector, but also training providers are now compelled to verify qualifications before they accept them as legitimate for any individual that is entering the workplace.
Sure, very lastly, Linda, before we let you go now, when it comes to social media, what happens then in that instance? So if you say that you have a degree in whatever and it turns out that you do not have, and apparently according to even the amendment, anybody can report you, friend, family, employers, anyone that knows that you're actually fibbing can report you.
And everyone should report you, because it is also an offence if you are unaware of somebody that has a false qualification or is claiming to have a false qualification. Well, obviously claiming to have a legitimate qualification that is false. You are also compelled to report them to the South African Qualifications Authority for investigation. Otherwise, you can also be held liable.
Sure. Dr. Linda Mayer, it is a very difficult conversation, but I think that many individuals who have even considered lying on their CV will now think twice. Dr. Linda Mayer, they're giving us the latest about the amendment that's been signed. If you lie on your CV or if you're attempting to lie,